This is Partners in Crime with Adam Croft and Robert Daws.
Hello, welcome to Partners in Crime, episode 141. We make it, Bob. We think it is.
Hello. Well, isn't that exciting? I just nearly didn't get my recording.
Do you know
set
what?
off, but I just did.
I started mine going during the theme tune as well. I hit the theme tune. I thought, oh no, I'm not recording the audio, and I did it in that.
I wish I was that
20
professional. I think I may have missed your opening few words. So
okay.
it just begins with me. Oh, me.
Your
What do
audio
you
only
think
needs
about
to
me?
begin with you, doesn't it?
Oh, well, that's just as well. See, that never occurred to me. I don't know. I just press a button and hope for the best.
The height of professionalism, aren't we?
As you well know. Oh, what a smashing week.
Yeah.
Apart from the cold and the cloud and the rain and the hail and all the usual things. But we usually start off with a weather forecast for... not weather forecast. The weather, as was forecast, was supposed to be a lot sunnier than it was. But alas,
It's
no. And
lovely
even
today.
Is it?
Yes.
We only live half a mile from each other, and it's pretty grey and miserable here.
No, it's lovely out here. I've been out there today. In fact, one of the reasons we're recording slightly late today is because Moriarty, one half of Moriarty, got called in for his COVID jab this morning. So had to wait for him. And also, I thought in that time I would pop out to the garden centre and get myself a few plants and do a bit of dithering around outside. So, yeah, it's been lovely this morning.
Well, it's a photographic evidence of your dithering amongst the what have you got out there? It's too late for daffs, isn't it? So what have you got?
The daffs are sort of going down now. Do you know what? You'll get to see it next week. Because
I will. I'm excited.
Because this is, and for those of you who aren't in the UK, you might not be aware of the rules and things we've had here. But as we're recording now, in 5 days' time, we'll be allowed indoors together again. So we've able to come back in the studio after, well, more than a year. I think sort of 14 months apart.
It's been a long time since I've drunk your coffee and had your chocolate biscuits.
I remember we got that new gear in to do the video episodes and things like that, and then couldn't do them. So we've been stuck on this Zoom type thing for the last year.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, but it's been a fascinating week, really. I mean, I had a COVID jab, which this is the second one. I got it early. And that knocked me sideways. Nowhere near as bad as the first one. When I say knocked me sideways, I was just sort of really nowhere near as much as the first time. But the second time, I was feeling very, very sorry for myself. But after that, I'm feeling a lot better. So you have to go through a little pain.
Presumably nowhere near as bad as COVID itself, which you also got to experience last year.
No, Amy was talking about that last night and watching a hospital program, which was very, very sad and whatever. And she said, "Oh, God, thank God you didn't go to hospital. You nearly did." And I went, "Oh, great." Anyway, so Good night, dear. and that was it. So anyway, spring is here, and I'm eternally grateful for all life. But COVID restrictions continue, of course, all over the planet, unfortunately. And I'm about to, in a few minutes' time, talk about how it's affected the West End of London and its theatres and a certain murder mystery play, but we'll come back to that in a second. So there was something else I was going to say about this last week. It was completely
while you remember, I'll jump in because you mentioned about COVID, how it's affected theatres and TV and things like that, and of course the theatres still aren't open. And I remember there was a time when we were all talking about that, and that was in all the newspapers and all the radio phone-ins, and I think that the excitement of the vaccine has kind of thrown that into the wilderness a bit. Nobody's talking about it, and I've got a bit of a theatre background myself, and
you certainly have.
And I'm ashamed to say that that completely slipped my mind until you just said it. I thought, it's just not
Well, it
been
hasn't
there,
slipped
has
mine
it?
because I haven't been out of work in theatre for over a year.
Yeah.
I mean, I finished the job 1 week before I actually went down with the dreaded lurgy, and that was back in March of last year. So, I mean, it's been a long old haul, and it's been absolutely awful for people in the arts. I mean, and especially for those who haven't been able to get the help that has been offered to others. It's been terrible, a bad time to be a freelancer, and especially a freelancer in the arts. But there you are. I mean, theatre is coming back, albeit socially distanced, understandably, but the doors are open. The chances of them making anything approaching profit or even wiping their mouths is remote, but certainly in the West End and many theatres around the country, they are determined that the spirit of theatre shall continue, and they'll do whatever they can, and the plans seem very exciting. We've carried on through doing streaming of theatre plays and showing things from theatres' libraries that have been filmed and recorded over this time, and that's caught on in a big way, as we've mentioned before. People have been following theatre, and people have been watching theatre, albeit not live, but filmed. So it's great. In fact, our dear friend Sean Mckenna, he of the stage, very successful stage adapter of Peter James's plays, has had a play on at the Jermyn Street Theatre, which has got absolutely fantastic reviews. In fact, I'm going to get one down in a second while you're chatting away and read it.
Hopefully,
read
fantastic
it to you,
clothes as well, is it, on the Jermyn Street Theatre? Great costumes.
Well, you pop across for a very nice pair of brogues and a cravat if you feel like it. But it's a thriller, a psychological thriller, and so I'll come to that in a second. So over to you while I find it.
Well, it's perfect timing because you've kind of accidentally segued for me, which is lovely, because the Jersey Evening Post had an article this week. I mean, lots of people have been talking about it. Peter James has a new book out.
He certainly does.
Left You Dead, new book featuring Detective Superintendent Roy Grace returning for another crime fiction tale, on the subject of which Peter also announced this week or last week that Grace, a second series, has been commissioned for ITV as well, so it's been a very good week for him. Left You Dead investigates the case of a missing person, or Roy Grace does in the book anyway. He says, "It's very much what people like in my work, a twisting Roy Grace thriller with conflicts, surprise, nail-biting, edge-of-the-seat reading. The story centres on the disappearance," great name here, Eden Paternoster, who on the way back from a day
that's
trip...
a cracker, isn't it? Eden Paternoster.
On the way back from a day trip with her husband Niall, insists she needs to make a stop at the supermarket. Eden tells Niall to wait in the car, she kisses him goodbye, and never returns. And Peter says it's actually an idea that he's had for quite some time, because nearly 20 years ago he spent a day at a seminar for UK police forces on missing persons. Of course he did, why not? He said it was an extraordinary presentation, but he discovered that 230,000 people were reported missing every year in the UK. The vast majority reappear a few days later, but if they didn't come back after 30 days, the odds were they would never turn up again. And he said it really fascinated him what happened to them, why they went, were they in debt, had they changed identities, had they chosen to go, had someone else chosen for them, what's going on essentially. And that's the background to his new book, Left You Dead, which is out now and looks fantastic, and I shall be buying this week, as I have all of Peter's books. In fact, I'm going to wait until next week, because then I'll be in Rutland and I can support a local bookshop.
Well, fantastic. Well, that's great. And also the excellent news is that's come through this week, although we still have one Grace, the ITV adaptation of Peter's work, the Roy Grace series, in the can, waiting to go out later in the year. ITV have already recommissioned a second series to be made, I guess, later on in the year to be broadcast next year. So that's
almost like I just said that.
Great news. Yeah, is that exactly what you just said?
Pretty much.
I said I wasn't listening.
You didn't hear the bit where I talked about your filthy habit then either?
Again, I know everyone knows about that, so I won't repeat that again, apart from the fact that ITV have just recommissioned Peter James's series for a second.
Have they?
Yes, and I think that's absolutely great news. And so does Peter, I'm sure, and certainly all his readers. Anyway, back to Sean Mckenna, who, as I mentioned earlier, adapts all of Peter's stage plays for the theatre, and hugely successfully too. He has a play which is streaming now, and it's available still, I believe, to watch online, and I'm sure there'll be a theatre production of it live as soon as that is possible. From the German Street Theatre, as we mentioned, you can get some fine clothes or get a very nice spraunce haircut and beard trim as well. Anyway, Sean's play is called Rocky Road. It's got a 4-star review by Arifa Akbar in The Guardian. It stars Kirsten Foster and Tiger Drew Honey, and the word on the street for us West End Johnnies that actually aren't particularly Johnny or particularly West End, because I haven't been to the West End for over a year myself, is that it's absolutely terrific. The reviews have been good, so look for that online. It's Sean McKenna's Rocky Road, and that is coming from the German Street Theatre, so get that. But it's not only that theatre that is actually moving as quickly as they can to get back to performance, not streaming, but actually in rehearsals and about to open. The headline is, this is Mark Lawson, again in the ever-readable and wonderful and happy birthday, the Manchester Guardian as once was, the Guardian as we know it, 200 years old it is now, and they've been celebrating that quite rightly. But the headline is, from Mark Lawson's article, The Case of the COVID-Compliant Murder. How the Mousetrap is snacking back to life. Well, that's my kind of theatre.
Cheese, presumably.
A nice snack back to life. Snapping back to life. Agatha Christie's Snowbound Whodunit is the world's longest running play. Now it's leading the big reopening with a double cast and no kissing. An invincible hit. Mary Laura in The Mousetrap in 1957. There's a photograph here which you can't see, but there are lots of photographs because, of course, it has been going since the late 1940s. The London West End is filled with ghost shows. Frontages still advertise productions that were frozen on the 16th of March last year when the government advised against theatre going, writes Mark Lawson. Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap at St Martin's Theatre is the whodunit that opened in 1952, not the late 40s, and endured the Cold War, IRA, Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State terrorism to become the world's longest running show. Due to COVID, its 69 years are no longer continuous, but the show is scheduled, as our friends like to say, to resume after a 15-month pandemic gap on the 17th of May. That's next Monday, isn't it? Britain's theatre's most invincible hit, leading the return to work. 7 decades on, The Mousetrap in the 21st century. It's a symbol of the West End, says Adam Spielberg, the play's producer. As well he might, but it is actually true. Sitting masked beside an open window in the St Martin's bar. However, appropriately, if alarming, there is suspense. He says it won't actually be confirmed until the 10th of May whether we can open on the 17th. Well, it is. If that date is pushed back, that would surely be a shattering blow. It would be an enormous inconvenience, an act of real vandalism against the industry. Our view is that the 17th of May can't slip. Well, fighting talk there. But it's fascinating because they've dealt with it in a very particular way. They've got 2 sets of casts. And a very good friend of mine, Susan Penhaligon, is in the first, and other actors include Louise Jameson and Derek Griffiths, who I work with on Doctor Who, and we all know from his extraordinary work, as an actor through the years, most recently in Small Acts, but also in Playaway and Play School and whatever. So fond memories from childhood there for some of us. But anyway, he is, I think, playing the Colonel in this. But they are rehearsing 2 separate casts, and the idea is that if one person is unfortunate to fall ill or contract COVID, then the person in the other cast will be able to slip into that role and the show will go on. It's a very ingenious method of bringing back live theatre in this way and protecting themselves.
Has it changed from the understudy thing? Sorry, I'm I don't know if I've missed something there.
Well, there'll still be understudies. And
Okay, so the dual cast and understudies.
And understudies. So they really are covering themselves for all eventualities, well, most eventualities anyway. Derek Thompson points out an irony in the extraordinary longevity of Christie's tale. The Mousetrap was never highly regarded by her agent, Agatha, as this is. He much preferred two other stage works, The Hollow and The Witness for the prosecution, written on either side of the snowbound house mystery. He actually expressed a fear that The Mousetrap might damage her stage reputation in the US were it to be produced there. Christie was much more prolific as a novelist than as a dramatist, but Derek Thompson, sees a connection. Her books are very theatrical in themselves. Very little description, a lot of dialogue with scant interconnective tissue. That's the way in which her mind naturally worked. She had an instinctive theatrical sensibility. The Mousetrap is generally regarded as a lure for tourists, and this is an interesting fact. Steve, right in the afternoon, a factoid of whom there will inevitably be fewer this summer. But the producer says that the Mousetrap is a tourist destination is a bit of a myth. Our analysis of the data is that a third of the audience is foreign tourists, a third domestic tourism, and a third Londoners. One of the gambles the industry is taking for the next 12 months is that domestic tourism will take place of international visitors. Griffiths is aware of other concerns. I've had a lot of calls from actors saying, I'm not sure I could do theatre anymore, it's been so long. There's a huge shakiness in the business. However, another actor says that they do not expect audiences to be nervous. Going to the theatre in that brief period last year when they reopened, there was an amazing cathartic response from people at theatre being back. I hope and think that will happen again. The Mousetrap is scheduled to reopen at St Martin's Theatre in the West End of London on the 17th of May, and I wish them all the very best. I think it's an ingenious approach. My very good friend Denise Sylvie, who is I've been running that show for years, and a wonderful producer is going from one rehearsal room to the other, I think, at this moment, with the double cast. And as you quite rightly say, Adam, the understudy rehearsals will have to come in good time. But anyway, an exciting prospect, a British institution, theatrical institution, back live once more, and I think that's cause for a standing ovation.
Brilliant. Well, the other theatres, we need them back open. They will be very soon, it's looking like. And something else which will be open and running for the public is this year the Theakston Old Peculier Crime Writing Festival in Harrogate. Whee! And they've just released the full long list for Novel of 2021, which is Crybaby by Mark Billingham, The Other Passenger by Louise Candlish, The Cutting Place by Jane Casey, I'll put my money on that one, I think, 50-50 by Steve Kavanagh, Black River by Will Dean, Between Two Evils by Eva Dolan, The Guest List by Lucy Foley, that's another contender, definitely, The Lantern Man by Ellie Griffiths, The Big Chill by Doug Johnston, 3 Hours by Rosamund Lupton, Still Life, Val McDermid, The Last Crossing by Brian McGilloway, Death in the East by Abir Mukherjee, Our Little Cruelties by Liz Nugent, A Song for the Dark Times by Ian Rankin, Remain Silent by Susie Steiner, We Begin at the End by Chris Whitaker, and The Man on the Street by Trevor Wood. There we go.
Ooh, I don't know Trevor Wood. That's a new writer for me. What a fantastic list! It just makes me feel guilty because I've only read of that list, I think, Ellie's book. So I've got a lot to get through this summer, very happily. So that's great. So, yeah. Okay, well, I've got, first of all, a Bobo's Booko of the Weeko. And
you'll get the name right one day.
I will do. It's Bobo's Kobo Booker of the Weeko. That's a word from our sponsors coming shortly, no doubt. And that is Her First Mistake by Carey Baldwin. Here's a quick synopsis. Mia covered her mouth to keep from crying. She hated the dark, but her mother had made her promise. But what was the point of being a good little girl if she couldn't help her mother? She promised her mother not to scream, but she hadn't promised not to escape. The world of Mia Thornton is invisible, a quiet, timid preschool teacher. People would never guess that she found the will to dig her way out of a locked shed when she was just 6 years old, that she never saw her mother again. Now all Mia longs for is a normal life and friends to call her own. But when she runs into a group of colleagues one evening, she discovers that once again she's been excluded. Stung at the rejection, she pockets the keys of one of the women in a petty act of revenge. Celeste Cooper is fearless, pretty, popular. Don't we hate them? Everything Mia wishes she could be. The next day, Celeste is reported missing, and Mia realises that it might have been her fault. Racked with guilt, she joins the search, determined to make up for her mistake. But as she grows closer to Celeste's family, Mia can't help but feel she's being watched. So there we are. That sounds like a cracking read. It's got very good reviews. Her previous book, that is Carey Baldwin, was top of the USA Today best-selling list and countless other big awards in the States. So that's one, if you fancy it, to download immediately. Her First Mistake, an utterly gripping psychological thriller with a breathtaking twist by Carey Baldwin.
Lovely. And where might you recommend they get those things from, Bob?
Oh, I don't know, down the local newsagent.
You reckon?
I don't know. Where would you say? Dulcet tones of sponsor voice, please.
I would heartily suggest going to Kobo, actually, because they very kindly sponsor this podcast, so it'd be a shame not to, wouldn't it?
It
if
would
you
be.
use the promo code CRIME at the checkout, you can get 90% off of your first ebook purchase from Kobo, and if you're an existing customer, then you can use the promo code PARTNERS if you go through the link in the show notes, and you get 40% off of selected purchases from now until forever. What else was I going to say? Oh yes, if you're one of our patrons, you'll be watching this episode, not just listening to it. You actually get to see us, and as they say, from next week you'll get to see us in the same room together. We're allowed to hug as well, Bob. Did you know that?
Are we allowed to hug?
We're allowed. I mean, I'm
Gracious me.
clearly not going to, but we are allowed
No,
to.
I'm clearly not going to. But
I don't want to touch you. I legally can, but I'm not going
Well,
to.
you might have to, because I might offer a firm shake of the hand.
Well,
and
I'll glove
that'll
up.
be it. Get those garden gloves on. Here comes Bob. Yeah, okay.
But yeah, you'll be able to see us, and you can see us anyway, except we're not in the same room at the moment. You also get lots of other things, an extra bonus episode each week, which we record after the main one, Partners in Crime, Arsenic and Old Lace. You'll get a shout out on the show in the week you join, and also a free book of the month every single month, courtesy of our friends at Kobo. And this month it is The Concealers, the first Rhonda George thriller from Janet Pywell, a brand new book which only came out in March. So you can log into your Patreon dashboard if you're a Partners in Crime patron and download that for free now. And if you're interested in joining, if you want to see what it's all about, the link is in the show notes, or you can check out patreon.com/Partners in Crime podcast. Now, Bob, I wanted to make a TV recommendation this week.
Would you be so kind?
Well, I think we've spoken about this on the show before, but have you watched Inside No.9?
Yes. It's sensational.
It's the most incredible series. For those who perhaps haven't seen it, they're half-an-hour episodes on BBC, and it's the same two people each week with supporting cast, and they write in it, they act in it, they do pretty much everything. And all I'd say is the only thread that runs through it is the setting is some sort of number 9, either a house number 9 or ward 9 and a hospital. That is the only thing that links them. They're all set in one location, links with a number 9. Other than that, there's not even a set genre. We have all sorts of things. There are big twists and turns the whole way through, but they're wonderful little, almost like one-act plays with some kind of twist. And this week's one I thought was an excellent one to watch because it's light-hearted. It's also kind of thrillerish. It's essentially what would happen if you mixed a bank heist thriller with a commedia dell'arte setup. And what happens is absolutely beautiful, as you'd expect from the guys at Inside No.9. So do go and check that out. It's on the BBC iPlayer, and also I imagine BBC Worldwide, whether it's there yet or not.
It's
I don't
stunning.
know.
I mean,
It's an
the
incredible
imagination.
show.
Their imagination is boundless, it seems to me. And I did see a slightly iffy review for this week's one, which I saying, "Oh, is it not funny enough?" Well, I thought it was hilarious. I didn't know how much of it was.
It's commedia dell'arte. It's not me original. Well, everyone knows the jokes. They know the setups. It's like the play that goes wrong and Mrs. Brown's Boys, things like that. You know what's coming.
It's quite
That's
brilliant.
Kind of what's funny.
Well, but again, there's a constant surprise, a constant invention of the guys, and they are superb actors, comedians, and supporters. But the writing is brilliant. They surround themselves with a great cast. There's Kevin Bishop in this week's episode, all masked. And one of the things as in Commedia, and you forget how powerful masks are and how sinister masks are when you actually can't see the actual, only half a face of the person that you're talking to. But that wonderful blend of taking these archetypal commedia dell'arte characters and Scaramouche and all the rest of them, and then putting them in a warehouse where they're planning this bank heist.
Yeah.
It's quite brilliant, and it goes through all the classic stages of a heist movie, as you'd expect, and through all the classic, quite literal physical forms and slapstick and of commedia, and the juxtaposition of the two is quite brilliant. Yeah. And next week's is supposed to be every bit as good. So it's
what's next week's about? Do you know?
Haven't got a clue.
It could be anything. It could be a romance story. It could be a techno sci-fi.
It doesn't matter. I'm watching. It's just brilliant.
Couldn't it?
Yes,
Excellent.
That's Reece Shearsmith and Steve Pemberton, of course, well known from their partnership with Mark Gaddis's The League of Gentlemen. Absolutely brilliant and a great recommendation.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, yeah. I'm pretty much there. I think we're going to do...
That's absolutely fine. Well, I remember the thing I forgot to mention last week. I'm on a diet, Adam.
Oh.
You can see me now, and so can anyone on...
So you're looking so slender.
Yeah, well, I'm not exactly fading away, let's be honest about this. No, I have been. The time has come. Spring is the time of the year to do it. After a year of lockdown treats and nothing better to do than to have a peanut and a glass of red, the time has come when I looked at myself in the mirror and said, this cannot go on any longer. I mean, I've been saying that every year for about the last 30 years. So yes, I've been on a diet, and I have to say, I have to report to you that it's really not working. I wish it was. I wish I could turn around.
What is it you're doing? Is it a particular one, or is it just a...
It's what we're doing. We're doing 5-2, it's called.
Okay.
Which means you have your first cocktail at 5 to 2 in the afternoon, and
5-2 every hour.
5-2 every hour.
You have a glass of wine at 5-2 every hour.
You fast for 2 days and you eat sort of normally for the other 5 days, although you keep an eye on your calories. And yeah, I think it's something to do with as you get a bit older, the weight doesn't come off quite so easily. Or I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and jump on the scales. Well, I don't jump on them. I sort of tentatively approach them with dread and get on, and I'll just say, "Ha-ha, it's marvellous." So I've lost two and a bit pounds in 5 days, which is supposed to be a healthy amount. Apparently, it's 2 pounds per week is a healthy loss of weight.
It sounds like it's working then.
It sounds as if it's working, but there is no physical signs of it working whatsoever. So anyway, I'll report
that'll take
back
time.
next
It's only
week.
been 5 days. It will take time, won't it?
I suppose so. I just, as with all these things, it's just trying to maintain the will to live.
Which our listeners won't be as we approach 30 minutes.
30 minutes talking about my dietary catastrophe. Never mind. There we are. So that's what it is. So if I don't appear to my normal self, it's because I'm actually getting self-like and as they say, screen slim. So there we are. That's the end of another episode. So I hope you have another lovely week. The sun has come out here, so thanks very much indeed. You forecast that a little earlier. So I'm going to get out there and do nothing to my garden, but sit in it and have another cup of coffee.
Well, this will be hopefully for the last time ever. We hope the last time we'll be signing off like this from two different locations. on the main show. And the next time
Well,
you hear
I'm sure
us on
it
the main
won't
show,
be,
we'll
but it'd be nice to get back live in the studio,
Yeah.
as people used to say, and so that's it. There's a nice spirit about this week's show, Partners in Crime. I think that things are moving, things are changing, and things are opening up, and people will hopefully be able to once more get back to some semblance of normal living, and won't we all appreciate it?
Yeah, well, we were saying as well, we think next week's episode will be out a few days late, so don't panic if it's not on your podcatchers or whatever you call them on the Friday morning. We think it's probably going to come out on the following Monday, because the week after that, or I guess that week, there won't be an episode, because I'll be up in Rutland for the launch of my new book, In Cold Blood. So we're not going to drag you up to Rutland again and try and do another episode live.
Was that another year ago? Rutland's
That was in
becoming the
September.
sort of...
Yeah.
Rutland's becoming the sort of... gaining the status of a sort of NASA launch pad as regards your publishing, isn't it, really? We all go up to Rutland to witness the launch of the latest book, and why not?
Well, somebody put something in my readers group on Facebook the other day saying that there's a news story that apparently Rutland Water, somebody's managed to steal 23 boats from Rutland Water. Nobody's quite sure how. It's an enclosed body of water. We don't know.
I'll tell you when we're off air.
I did say. Well, I asked them actually if they wouldn't mind awfully moving them. They were cluttering up the place ahead of my arrival. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Best-selling crime author nicks 23 boats on Rutland Water.
Yeah,
as a publicity stunt.
Move the boats and put the red carpet out, please. Thank you very much. Right.
Well, okay then. Well, I forgot we're doing Arsenic and Old Nates next.
We are.
It's not
Yeah,
all sitting
very
in the garden
quick coffee
with my feet
refill,
up.
and we'll go on that, shall we?
Lovely. All right.
Lovely.
See you soon. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks for tuning in. And for those of you who've had to look at us as well, apologies. Take care and see you shortly.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft and Robert Daws and produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Faish. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, Theakston.